is Citizen Weekend with Olive Barrows.
The Saba Saba spirit. We have a lot to cover tonight on Citizen Weekend, including 35 years after Saba Saba. We have a special report by Brenda Wanga. We'll also be looking at separation of the church and state, and I'll be hosting Professor Emeritus of International Relations, Diplomacy and Governance, Professor Maria Nzomo, the first Kenyan woman to obtain a PhD in political science and the first female professor of international relations at the University of Nairobi. And together with her, we'll be looking at the diplomatic playbook. And we asked that question because we had diplomats, and we've had several statements from the diplomats calling for police restraint and accountability, and also commenting on the quote-unquote hired goons we've been seeing in protests. But the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has not taken too kindly to those statements, saying stop meddling in our internal affairs. That's what we'll get into with her. But first, the highlights.
Ausi shamba lako, enda ujenge kwako Karen, jenga kwako Sugoi, enda kwa kila kanisa iko na harambe wajenge.
It is unconstitutional. Opposition leaders call out President Ruto over construction of mega church in State House. Respect the law courts. JSC condemns excessive police force in the rearresting of suspect Kawanjiro. From road lights to an academy. Turkana boy who was captured studying under street lights enrolled into an academy. Saba Saba spirit. Recalling the journey of reforms and democracy 35 years on in our special feature, Saba Saba Spirit. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Yula Nzale. Opposition leaders have come out guns blazing to condemn President William Ruto's stance on constructing a church within the State House precincts, using what the president describes as, quote, his own money. Speaking during a funeral service in Madira constituency in Nyeri County, they also used the platform to forewarn government operatives against plans to disrupt Saba Saba demonstrations come Monday. Chris Benotieno kicks us off on Citizen Weekend.
Just a day after President Ruto confirmed the existence of a State House-based church, which is still under construction. Opposition leaders trooped to Nyeri's Madira constituency, ostensibly to weigh into the matter, which has literally caused uproar across the nation. Speaking during the burial of the late Gladys Gathoni and to former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, the opposition outfit used the platform to castigate the president's move, faulting him for turning public property for personal development, saying the Constitution of Kenya, Article 8, stipulates that there is no state religion.
Recognize our institution. If you want to commit a constitutional, impeachable offense, then continue with this thinking, because Kenyans are able to see through this.
Mr. President, we used to pray with you. You used to speak in tongues. You are a Christian. God called you, and you want to build a church. Let's build the spiritual one first, because the blood that is in our hands, that is not right. Mr. President, go back, think about it. As a Christian, we must follow the 10 Commandments. State House si shamba lako. Enda ujenge kwako Karen, jenga kwako Sugoi, enda kwa kila kanisa iko na harambe wajenge.
Our constitution is being perforated. Shida ya Kenya, tumeanza kuperforate constitution kabisa. Kenya is like a secular state. Sasa tunauliza Mheshimiwa Rais, wewe ukijenga kanisa pale State House. Kanisa ni vizuri kujenga, hata mimi ningependa kujenga kanisa. Je, wale Waislamu utawajengea nini?
The opposition additionally says the president's move requires public participation.
Ile ardhi pahali ikulu iko, hiyo ni mali ya umma. Ukitaka kufanya kitu chochote pale, lazima kiidhinishwe kupitia njia ya umma, na hiyo ni kupitia bunge la kitaifa. So ukianza kusema tunatumia hela yako pale, tunajenga kanisa. Yes, tunataka kanisa. But it has been explained very well here.
The leaders in attendance used the platform to eulogize the late Gathoni as an astute leader who embraced peace and harmony. Crispin Otieno, Citizen TV.
President William Ruto's admission of a plan to build a 1.2 billion shilling mega church at State House has triggered sharp criticism from legal experts and religious leaders. Lawyers argue that constructing a religious facility on public land violates the Constitution, which declares Kenya a secular state with no official religion. Check Article 8 of the Constitution. And in a fresh twist to the State House church plan, a section of Muslim leaders now want the president to build a mosque within State House grounds or risk appearing to sideline other faiths. Willie Lusige has more.
A day after President William Ruto defended his decision to construct a Kenya shilling 1.2 billion church at State House in Nairobi and insisted he has no apologies to make, despite growing public concern, divided opinions have emerged. Many Kenyans questioning why the president will proceed with such an expensive religious project on public land. State House, seen as a symbol of national unity and the seat of power, already sits near several established churches.
And he is not creating any new building. There is a structure that already exists. Two, it is to give him and the people who work in the State House and live there an opportunity to find a decent place to pray here.
A spot check by Citizen TV found out that State House is surrounded by over 10 churches. The nearest is AIC Milimani, less than a kilometer away, followed by Nairobi's Central SDA Church and the Orthodox Patriarchal Cathedral of St. Cosmas and Damian along Valley Road. Within a 2-kilometer radius, there are more than 10 churches, including All Saints Cathedral, Sitam Valley Road, the Grand Freemasons Hall, Lutheran Church, PCA St. Andrews, and St. Paul's Catholic Chapel. Legal experts say the president's justification contradicts the law. The Constitution, under Article 8, declares Kenya as a secular state with no official religion.
That gift has to be given to the controller of State House, and will declare it and release it to the exchequer. That will determine how it's supposed to be used. So the principle is not that people are against building of a church. People are against misappropriating public resources, in this particular case being the piece of land which is State House.
Lawyers clarifying that while Ruto says the church will be funded personally, donations to public offices must be declared formally with a public decision made on how they'll be used.
And a decision will be made on how that donation can be applied towards a public good, even if the donor had made a preference on how it should be used. But it cannot be that one person makes the decision and implements it without following the laid down procedures on handling donations to the public.
They insist the control of State House must explain who approved the project and how the public will access the church.
So this church that is building that is donated to the state, is it open to the public? The same public who, when they say they want to visit State House, we see barricades and we see razor wires.
Elsewhere, Muslim leaders are demanding equal treatment.
State House ni sehemu ambayo kwamba inabeba watu wa dini zote, nasi pia twaomba ipatikane jengo la Waislamu ili tukiwa sehemu kama ile nasi tupate sehemu ya kuswali.
Legal experts warn that the president risks breaching the public ethics laws and violating the Constitution if he proceeds with the construction of the church without following legal procedure. Even as President William Ruto defends his plan to build a billion-shilling church within State House, Kenyans are questioning questioning its legality, its necessity, and whether favoring one faith at the center of power will discriminate the others. Willie Lusige, Citizen TV, AIC Milimani, next to State House.
The Judicial Service Commission has condemned in the strongest terms possible the manner in which Peter Kawanjiru Kinyanjui was rearrested by anti-terror police within its precincts on Friday. JSC Secretary Winfrida Mokaya describing in a statement the facts indicate that the accused had been released on bond following a court ruling when shortly thereafter a team of police officers stormed the court in Ruiru to rearrest the accused. And during this action, gunfire was discharged within the court precincts despite the absence of any security threat or civil disorder. Her statement continues to read, the JSC has called on all actors within the justice sector to refrain from acts which erode confidence in the institutions charged with the administration of justice. Mokaya stating the use of firearms in a court environment is excessive, unjustified, and an affront to the authority and dignity of the judiciary. Her statement continuing to read, the sanctity of the court must be preserved at all costs. The DCP youth leader, Peter Kawanjiru, was arrested in dramatic fashion on Friday, shortly after being released on a bond of 500,000 shillings at the Ruiru Law Courts. Kawanjiru's mother is visibly distraught in the video recordings of the incident as anti-terror police armed to the teeth and with the assistance of other officers firing into the air, carted her son away amid screams. Kawanjiru is one of two Democracy for the Citizens Party youth leaders who were rearrested on Friday shortly after being released by the courts. Kawanjiru and DCP youth leader Wanjiku Thiga were arrested on suspicion of mobilizing youth for the demonstrations that commemorated the first anniversary of the monumental 2024 anti-finance bill protests. Deputy President Kithure Kindiki and other leaders backing the broad-based government have intensified attacks on the opposition, calling for unity to heal the nation. They spoke in Likoni and Jomvu constituencies during Kenya Kwanza fundraising forums, drumming up support for President William Ruto amidst the one-term versus two-term political debate.
Kenya Kwanza politicians on Saturday kicked off another round of economic empowerment initiatives in Mombasa, touring Likoni and Jomvu constituencies. The leaders used the opportunity to slam the opposition, accusing them of sowing seeds of discord across the country. Deputy President Kithure Kindiki, President's aide Farouk Kibet, and National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula blasted the opposition, saying they intend on dividing Kenyans by promoting divisive and tribal politics.
Iko grupu ingine ya watu wanazurura hapa wakigawanya taifa la Kenya kwa misingi ya kikabila, kwa misingi ya dini, kwa misingi ya kimaeneo. Rais Ruto amesema wakiwa na Prime Minister Raila Odinga hakuna ubaguzi tena.
Ningewaomba na niwasihi tusikubali hata kidogo mtu yeyote, kiongozi yeyote aje hapa Likoni kutuchochea kwa misingi ya ukabila, uchochezi ama siasa za chuki.
Nyinyi mnaambia nini wale wa kabila wanauza ukabila Kenya? Wakome wasikome, waende wasiende. The leaders accused the opposition of using looted funds to cause chaos.
Hao watu ambao walitoa pesa ambaye sasa wanatumia pesa kwa uchochezi, warudishe ama wasirudishe? Tunajua pesa ilitolewa benki kuu ambaye inaitwa NPK. Na nauliza hao wabunge, yule mbunge ako sawa sawa aweke bunge mswada.
Mimi katika mswada wangu Nataka waelezee wa Kenya zile hela walizochukua zilikuwa pesa ngapi, zilienda kufadhili miradi ya aina gani.
The leaders sustained their attacks on former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, accusing him of failing to unite the country while in office. Kithure Kindiki led the charge, urging support for President William Ruto's second term, stating that the Kenya Kwanza administration is focused on unlocking key economic drivers in the region.
Wanaleta uchochezi, wanaleta vita, wanaleta maandamano, wanaleta uharibifu wa mali, itafanya sisi tukose watalii. Na tukikosa watalii pwani, watoto wetu watakosa kazi.
Tumuunge mkono William Samoei Ruto 2027 arudi kama tamu ya pili, ashikane na Raila Amolo Odinga, waweke usawa.
The Deputy President later toured Mbeere North constituency in Embu County, inspecting key development projects that he says will unlock economic opportunities in the county. Francis Mtalaki, Citizen TV.
The opposition has slammed the government over what it terms as arbitrary arrests and the continued detention of vocal government critics. Opposition leaders claim the state is misusing anti-terrorism laws to silence dissenting voices. This follows a wave of arrests targeting youth leaders, many of whom are being held awaiting terror-related charges. On Friday, 25 youth were presented at the Kahawa Law Courts to face similar charges, but their plea taking was deferred.
So police wakasema the only way, because now the courts have released them, there is no other way. They should be rearrested and charged with offenses under the Terrorism Act. So inside a police station, elite officers from the anti-terrorism unit came in commando style with very serious weapons, firing in all directions, and rearrested the two young people, a young girl of 24, a young boy of, I think, 28. Since yesterday, they have been held in Communicado, and we have been told that they are being tortured and forced to give false testimony against leaders, so that also those leaders can be charged with the crimes under the Terrorism Act.
Tulikuwa kule kotini kwa mtoto anaitwa Diang'ui. Akatokelezea hiyo mambo haijaisha, sababu hatujui alitokelezeaje ile siku mkuu wa polisi, mkuu wa DCI ameambiwa aje kotini kutoa maneno. Na kesi zile zingine zote, ile siku wamesukumwa kuja kotini, ndio watoto wanatokelezea, wengine wakiwa wamefariki, ni mili inapatikana, wengine wakiwa hai.
A family in Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County, is mourning the loss of their son, Timothy Bwibo, who succumbed to gunshot injuries on Friday night. Bwibo, a father of two, was reportedly heading home when he was struck by a stray bullet in the stomach during the June 25th anniversary protests. He was rushed to the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, where he remained in critical condition until his death. Meanwhile, in Webuye, Bungoma County, Kenneth Ouma, who was killed while inside a gym, has been laid to rest in an emotional send-off. Gatete Njoroge has more.
Nilisikia uchungu.
Michael Bwibo breaks down mid-interview.
Sio rahisi.
The pain too raw, the loss too heavy. A young man full of promise, gunned down in his prime. A precious life silenced by a single bullet. Timothy Bwibo will never get to watch his two children grow, never guide them through life, or see them chase their dreams. He was simply at work when chaos erupted in Eldoret City.
Saa 9. Ananiambia, Fili, huku imekuwa mbaya, mimi nakuja nyumbani. Nikamwambia sawa, wewe kuja nyumbani. Si hata sisi tuko nyumbani.
Unfortunately, by the time he alighted at the home bus stop, police were still engaged in running battles with protesters. Timothy was caught in the crossfire and never made it home. The next phone call shattered Chemtai's world.
Ananiambia, wewe ni mke wa Tim. Nikamwambia ye. Niliongeleshwa tu kama niende, nikamwambia, "Sumi niambie umefika Nyadhiru hapa. Mbona hujafika kwa nyumba?" Akaniambia, "Mama, mimi si Tim. Mimi ni daktari. Tim ameshuhudiwa."
Bwibo was admitted at Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital in critical condition.
Mara mwisho akiniongelesha aliniambia, "Mama, usichoke." Nikamuuliza, "Mimi sijachoka, mimi niko sawa, kwani kuna shida wapi?" Jio wakati alikuwa anatolea choo kwa mdomo. Sasa ilikuwa ni wakati naosha, nampanguza naosha.
Kijana yangu alikuwa mtu wa nguvu. Nguvu sana. Kwa kazi ya mikono ambayo nilimfundisha. Hiyo usika hata bila kumjua. Najua Mungu ako.
About 60 kilometers away in Webuye town, another family was saying their final goodbye. Kenneth Ouma, a quiet, disciplined young man, had sought refuge in the gym amid the chaos unfolding in Karatina town. But even there he wasn't safe. 2 stray bullets struck him, abruptly ending not just his workout, but a life filled with potential. Meanwhile, in Nairobi, another grieving family is appealing for help. Victor Otieno, a student at Thika Technical Training Institute, was shot during protests in Juja. His family is now seeking financial support to transfer his body to Bungoma County for burial. A final journey home for a young life lost too soon.
Sina chochote. Usaidizi yenye ningekuwa nataka ingine ni vile hii mwili naweza kuitoa na ipeleke nyumbani.
According to the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, 19 people were killed during the June 25th anniversary protests held across the country. Gatete Njoroge, Citizen TV.
Traders affected by the recent demonstrations held in honor of victims of last year's anti-finance bill protests are now struggling to rebuild their lives. Many suffered devastating losses after opportunistic looters took advantage of the unrest, ransacking shops and setting them ablaze. Goods worth millions of shillings were destroyed in the chaos, leaving livelihoods in ruins. In a bid to recover, some traders have turned to community fundraising efforts, forming WhatsApp groups to appeal for support from friends, well-wishers and fellow Kenyans willing to help them start over. Citizen TV's Ben Kirui spoke to some of those affected and filed this report.
Caroline Kambua was a trusted figure in Nairobi's bustling OTC area, known for a reliable parcel reception, storage, and dispatch business. For years, she earned the confidence of clients who entrusted her with goods worth millions. But that trust and her business came crashing down on June 25th during nationwide protest held to commemorate victims of last year's anti-government demonstrations. A wave of violence swept through downtown Nairobi. A group of unidentified individuals broke into shops, looting and setting ablaze businesses. Kambua's included. Her clients' goods stored in her shop were reduced to ashes.
Kwa sasa hivi ni mtu mmoja ambaye alikuja akaniambia ilikuwa box ya simu. Kuna vile alikuwa anataka kuniandama nimlipe, but nikamwambia kuja jione, kuja one katoni yake ikiwa nchifu. Angalia yeye mwenyewe ndio aweze kuniamini. Hizo zingine zilikuwa maboxes zenye magunia ziko na manguo.
In the days that followed, Sheikh and Kambua shut down operations, but refusing to give up, she began rebuilding from scratch. With her shop in ruins, she now runs her business from the street, receiving and dispatching parcels the same day. She also operates a mobile kiosk beside the charred remains of what was once her store.
Kutoka hiyo dhansi sikuwa naweza na nguvu ya kukuja hapa kufanya anything. Ni customer alikuwa ananipigia simu tu kuniambia pole pole. Wenye wako wanajua Nilikuwa nawaambia tu bado nikiwa kwa nyumba, lakini kuanzia Saturday nikashika nguvu kidogo, ndio niliona customers wangu sasa sana hao wa parcels wanaumia sana.
Just a few steps away, Victor Kemboi, who owned a cleaning services business, is facing a similar fate. The protest left his business, Signature Cleaning Services, completely destroyed.
Loans zinaniangalia, sitaki kurudi nyumbani. I had 36 staff, sasa watu saizi wako nyumbani.
He lost 2 shops and an estimated 2.6 million Kenya shillings in assets.
So I don't know where to start, I don't know where to end. Mimi huwa nimelala siku 3 sijaamka, shindwa sasa vile nitaanzia na vile nitamalizia.
For Mercy Lonzi, the pain is just as raw. She ran a combined agrovet and stationery shop valued at close to 3 million Kenya shillings. Today, she wakes up with no clear path forward.
Tuko katika hali ngumu sana sababu hakuna pesa. Biashara bado ilikuwa chini, sikuwa na cash nyingine. Hata nilikuwa nimestock hiyo week. Sina pesa nyingine yoyote.
Their stories are echoed by countless other traders across Nairobi and beyond, left reeling in the aftermath of protests that quickly turned violent. As talk of fresh demonstrations looms, anxiety grips business owners who fear further losses. The traders are now calling on the government to guarantee security during public demonstrations and, more importantly, to find a lasting solution to the unrest that continues to destabilize livelihoods. Ben Kiroi, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
We take a break on Citizen Weekend, but as promised, on the other side, we return with that special report by Brenda Wanga, the Saba Saba Spirit. Thank you for staying with us on Citizen Weekend. A pupil whose video recently went viral on social media has touched the hearts of many Kenyans with his relentless pursuit of education. Peter Losike was filmed doing his homework under a floodlight in Lodwar town, forced to study this way because his home lacks electricity. Peter's story highlights the economic hardships faced by countless Kenyan learners, shining a spotlight on the daily struggles many students endure as they fight to keep up despite overwhelming challenges.
It is 10 p.m. at Nakwa Mekwe Center in Lodwar, Turkana County. Peter Losike, an 11-year-old grade 5 pupil, is the only person here. Deeply focused on his mathematics homework. For months, this has been his routine. Escaping the blanket of darkness at home to quench his thirst for knowledge under the street light.
Anasoma mara nyingi hapa hivi kwa light. Mimi huwa napitanga, sometimes huwa naenda boli coach. Sasa hiyo siku nilikuwa mapitepite zangu tu. Nikamwona akisoma hapa kwa light. Nikaona si Mungu tu amsaidie siku moja tu apate tu msaidizi, aache kusoma kwa street light. Ana wazazi wote walifariki.
Miaka 11 ako darasa la tano ni grade 5. Anakuja kumwangaza kama huu chini ya umwangaza, anafunua vitabu zake, anasoma juu ya mtihani. Ni mtu ambaye ako na akili sana.
After studying late into the night, Peter walks home, often going to bed hungry. He lives with his grandfather and several other cousins. The old man, worn by age, can barely afford meals, let alone paraffin for lighting. But hope has arrived. A well-wisher has stepped in to support Peter's education. He is now enrolled at Turkana Blooms Academy.
We are committed as a school to ensure that we help this boy at least reach his dream. On interaction with him, he tells us that he wants to be a doctor.
Peter's determination reflects the resilience of thousands of children in marginalized areas. A powerful reminder of the urgent need for increased investment in education to ensure every learner across the country has an equal chance at quality schooling. Laura Otieno, Citizen TV.
35 years ago, around this time, the wheels of Kenya's push for multi-party democracy began to turn, set in motion by the arrest of prominent opposition figures. Charles Rubia, Kenneth Matiba and Raila Odinga were detained just days before the historic Saba Saba rally, a demonstration that began in violence but paved the way for the return of multi-party democracy in post-independent Kenya. Brenda Wanga begins our special coverage on the spirit of Saba Saba, a journey through the struggle, the sacrifice and the lasting legacy of this defining moment in our history.
On the 7th of July 1990, Kenya was in the grip of one of the most intense protests witnessed since independence.
We were able to bring together in this town, I think, more than 500,000 people.
People are dying to come there. That it was some kind of rebirth. People are looking for a rebirth. Mtoto amefika kuzaliwa, lazima azaliwe.
The uprising then had been a long time coming. Kenya was suffocating under the near dictatorship leadership of the then President Daniel Arap Moi. He had not only chained Kenya into a legal one-party state, but he had clamped down on dissenting voices, especially in the wake of the attempted coup. Those opposed to the KANU government and ideologies began organizing underground through movements like the December 12th movement and later Mwakenya.
We used to get concerned with liberation.
Professor Kiongo Maina, detained for these activities and former MP and one of the organizers of the Saba Saba, say Kenya went through a rough 4-year period before the idea of Saba Saba was birthed.
The government now was cracked down. There was total fear in the whole country. People could not even talk. Families were not talking. You could not, a wife could not talk to her husband could not, because everybody was suspecting everybody else. So the next four years, 96, 86, 87, 88, the government tended to have an upper hand. And by 1988, so many of Mwakenya members were rotting in Kenyan prisons.
After 1988 December, they decided to stop me from activities in KANU, and then we declared multi-party now campaign. That is when we started. By that time, Breda, Kenneth Matiba had been humiliated and embarrassed in Kiharu. Simeon Nyachai had been kicked out of the Chief Secretary's office, and quite formidable Kenyans, you know, were kicked out of KANU through the Mulolongo of 1988. And George Anyona and I went out there talking to them about starting the movement. Some of them declined, some of them shied away, but Jaramogi Oginga Odinga and Achieng' Oneko and Bildad Kagia and Luke Obok supported us very seriously. And so Simeon Nyachai agreed that it was time to do something. He supported us. He contacted Kenneth Matiba to hear us. And we talked to Kenneth Matiba, and he agreed to join the movement. And therefore, between December and March, December of 1989 and March of 1990, a lot went on, because Saba Saba was declared or announced in April of 1990, right? And so between October and March, what happened was to mobilize some leaders, including religious leaders. In fact, Timothy Njoya and Bishop Okulu, became very central to our movement. Although they did not declare that they were members, but they were very central. They are the ones that announced on the 31st of December 1989, 1st of January 1990, that the wind of change must be allowed to change this nation and blow from the north to the south. And so Africa must be able to change, right? Why were they saying that? Because in September of the previous year, 1989, the war, the Berlin Wall, had fallen, and so much had happened, you know, forcing people to resign, forcing countries to go democratic, and the two were saying, you cannot continue oppressing and arresting people. We must allow democracy to thrive in our country.
You remember in 1988, there had been an election. And during that election, and I guess that was the Mlolongo election, there were very many politicians who, of course, were thrown out or who were shortchanged. And they were not able to get their positions at all. So the number of people who were frustrated, the number of people who felt that something was wrong was actually swelling. And I think this is why you drag in, you know, the names of the Matibas and the Robias and the rest.
Democratic freedom as laid down in our constitution.
The KANU government's attempt to stop the planned Sabasaba only served to spur the determination of the organizers and Kenyans tired of the authoritarian Moi rule. Days to the D-Day, the faces of the movement, as they had come to be known, Kenneth Matiba, Charles Rubia, and Raila Odinga, were arrested.
I went there and read the statement. He's saying if Moi does not release those three fellows, he's declaring war on the Kenyans, and we are prepared to fight. I was very bitter. We were very bitter. And I remember being asked, are you not afraid of being arrested and detained? I said, what can Moi do? There are two things he can do. Arrest me, take me back to detention, or kill me. But by killing me, he will not stop the revolution. Kenyans are tired. And from there, I knew if I am ready for the knee. I was prepared for anything.
The day before Sabasaba, Nairobi began swarming with people from all walks of life, eager to participate in the clamor for change.
One thing people must know, Sabasaba was not meant to be demonstrations. Sabasaba was meant to be a meeting to discuss the party's program, how we were going to be unveiling ourselves to the people, and why we thought that Moi at that stage should agree that democratic elections take place by removing Section 2A, you know, which he resisted quite much.
Kuna mambo kadha. Hamjui kwamba ndani yenu wenyewe kuna vote.
The government outlawed that rally and security was heavily deployed to the historic Kamukunji grounds. But the determined organizers had their way of bringing people here under the very eye of the security.
We had organized a young boys team, you know, the 11 side. And that 11th side walikuwa wanacheza mipira hii ya makaratasi, si ile mipira ile the football makaratasi, you know, and that one started attracting the people, and the boys were very good. They came.
To follow the government, we had organized a football tournament, pretending that these are people playing football. And we were playing there up to 10, up to 12. They said, no, let us have a meeting. You don't have to wait for the other guys. We are here. And nobody could penetrate that place.
What had begun as a peaceful assembly quickly descended into a brutal crackdown. Tear gas filled the air, truncheons swung, and live bullets were fired. The streets of Nairobi and soon other towns became battlegrounds. The human cost was immense.
When we started addressing the meeting, wow, we saw the full force of the government.
That particular day, I think, they killed just about 13 of our young people and arrested quite many, about 330. And for us, we continued.
35 years later, and that spirit of the first Sabasaba remains. A different generation is now driving the agenda, and the veterans of that day say the similarities are striking and the lessons learned remain relevant despite the generation gap.
People were asking us, did you want to overthrow the government? The intention of our movement was not about overthrowing. We were always campaigning for a democratic society. We still do, you know. We still think that our leaders are able to look at our society as competent to run its affairs if they were given enough freedom.
Say the Sabasaba still has a lot of significance and relevance because this was part of the democratization of this country. And with that, there have been stages of democratizing and including having a new constitution, which has been hailed as one of the most progressive constitutions in the world.
And that democratic space is what is manifesting 3 decades later. A new generation has stepped forward, carrying the same spirit of courage that shaped the country's democratic journey. While the context has evolved, the aspirations remain clear. A call for greater accountability, economic opportunity, social justice, and a society where fairness, dignity, and shared prosperity are not just ideal, but everyday reality. That symbolic day remains a vital part of Kenya's civic calendar. It continues to be a day of reflection, activism, and protest.
We are happy to see them, pick up the mantle from us. Of course, we are still there at the background, trying to, advise some of them because they are our brothers and sisters. Some of them are young enough to be our children. And we are still shepherding them to tell them so that they can also benefit from the intergenerational learning that is critical, even as they wage their war. Because theirs is completely different from ours.
The Sabasaba of 1990 was a turning point, a powerful reminder of what our united people can achieve. It opened the door to the democratic freedoms Kenya and her citizens enjoy today and inspired a new generation to remain engaged, to safeguard those hard-won rights and to play an active role in building a more just, inclusive and prosperous Kenya. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
Our special coverage of Sabasaba 35 years on continues tomorrow on Sunday Live on Citizen TV and Citizen Digital with Claire Munde on X Spaces, so do tune in. We take a break. Often misunderstood and stigmatized, coffin makers are sometimes accused of profiting from death, even by those closest to them. It's a trade many would rather avoid, but in Kisumu, 2 women have chosen to defy the odds, stepping into a world dominated by men and shadowed by taboo. Laura Otieno reports on the women breaking gender barriers and rewriting the script on survival in unlikely places.
It's a typical morning at a workshop next to the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga morgue. 30-year-old Maureen Anyango is already at work. her dusty hands moving swiftly and steadily in a rhythm perfected by time. For the past 3 years, this mother of two has been a coffin maker. It is a far cry from her previous job as a waitress, a role that barely met her family's needs. But for Maureen, it was a matter of survival.
Wanasema, kumbe Maureen, unatamani tu watu wakufe, upate pesa, toka kwa hiyo job. Hiyo job inifurahishi. Mimi nasema pana, si kwa hivyo.
Inside the workshop, 21-year-old Penina Atieno stitches away with quiet focus. For the past year, this has been her daily routine, crafting the padding that lines the inside of coffins. It is a job many shy away from, but for Penina, it is a stepping.
I used to dream, dead bodies. Niliamua tu, hata kama naota niamue tu nishone tu. Nataka niendelee mbele na masomo, hata nikifanya hii kazi napata kidogo. Hata sasa hivi niko hapa, certificate yangu bado iko kwa shule.
Maureen and Penina are the only women at this workshop. Their male colleagues often lending a helping hand, especially for the tough jobs.
Unapata customer anakuja hapa na akona marehemu akomochari, anataka uende upige marehemu kwanza ndio umtengenezee sanduku. Na hao madems pia tunawaambia tu hiyo ni kitu normal, ukishakuja hapa ni normal tu.
Kazi hakuna ya dem, hakuna ya mwanaume. Watu wanatoshana.
Laura Otieno, Citizen TV.
Radio Citizen team visited Jetview SDA Church in Utawala, Nairobi on Saturday as part of their ongoing community outreach. During the visit, they expressed gratitude to congregants and listeners for their unwavering support and dedication. They encouraged everyone to keep tuning in to their programs for more impactful content. The team also urged the church to continue mentoring young people, offering spiritual and moral guidance to help shape a stronger, better future.
Kutusikiza kila mara, maana Radio Citizen chemjeme ya kweli inazidi na kuendelea kuwa radio nambari ngapi? Nambari ngapi? Hiyo ina maana kuwa there is something right that we are doing. And of course hatuwezi fanya vile ama kuwa nambari moja bila support ya nyinyi kama wasikilizaji.
Walikuwa unajua vile sauti iko chini ndio mtakaa, najua mnasikia njaa. Hata sio nyinyi peke yenu, hata mimi. Naona wale wajanja wako huko juu. Hawa ndio wajanja, unajua wako karibu na Mungu, ndio wanapata baraka mingi.
Gari bila number plate tunasema kwamba ni ya mwizi. Kule kazi yetu ni kupeperusha habari. Jina langu ni Joseph Njane. Na kule huwa kazi yetu ni rahisi tu pale hivi tukiingia hapa tu na hii ni taarifa ya habari kutoka idhaa ya Kiswahili ya JTC. Kwa sasa ni Jetview Broadcasting Corporation. Mwanzo ni habari zake kwa ufupi.
Did you hear that bass? Royal Media Services was last night recognized as one of the top community promoters of road safety in Kenya. This honor was awarded during the AA Kenya Road Safety Excellence Awards held in Nairobi, an event that celebrates individuals, organizations, and institutions going above and beyond to improve road safety. The ceremony brought together leaders from both the public and private sectors, all united in the goal of making Kenyan roads safer. Several national figures in road safety advocacy and implementation were honored. Speaking at the event, Managing Director of the National Transport and Safety Authority announced plans to reintroduce alcoblow tests.
We have collected a lot of data and information on road safety. We have been engaged in a number of discussions with various people. We've discovered that there is so much that is happening, and we wanted to recognize this, and more important, to learn from each other. We needed to know what is it that we are doing in our various corporates, in our various areas, and how can we learn from each other.
Most of our fatalities are between 18 years and 35 years old. We can be able to pass a road safety message with the partnership that we have across the players in this room towards road safety.
Rwanda's women team continued their dominant run at the 2025 Africa Sitting Volleyball Championship, overpowering Kenya 3-0 in the second match staged at the Kasarani Indoor Arena. The East African Giants displayed composure throughout the encounter, winning in straight sets of 25-13, 25-16 and 25-18.
Also prepared well for us. They knew we are not.
So we are coming here to continue our development for my team, and I think my team is already grow up, and we have more experienced players.
KCB women's volleyball ball dominated day one of the Kenya Cup tournament at the Nyayo Indoor Arena, beating Posta Bank by straight sets. KCB dominated the match, winning by scores of 25-15, 25-14 and 25-23. They showed their grit in the first two sets, but Posta Bank attempted a near scare in the third set by 23 points, but the Bankers stood firm to protect their vault. In other matches, Kenya Prisons beat Kenya Army 3-0, while DCI beat KDF by 3-1.
Also in attacks, we did very well, so the game was going well smooth against Kenya Post Bank. Post Bank is a fast-growing team, and the way we played them signifies that we are ready to go to the semi-finals and do well. And I think we are going to meet Kenya Prisons at the semi-finals.
Crawford International School are the champions of the inaugural private and international prep schools staff football tournament held at the School of the Nations in Westlands, Nairobi. After a 1-1 draw against Wood Creek in normal time, Crawford won 3-2 through penalty shootouts. The tournament attracted over 15 schools. Footballers Diogo Jota and Andre Silva have been honored by their family, friends and teammates at a joint funeral in Portugal. Jota, 28, was laid to rest alongside his brother Silva, 25, after they died in a car crash on Thursday. Hundreds of locals and supporters gathered Saturday in Gondomar, where the brothers are from. The funeral also brought together huge names from across football, including Jota's teammates Virgil van Dijk and Andy Robertson. The service was held in Gondomar, a small Portuguese city near Porto. All right, that concludes Citizen Weekend. I've been your host, Olive Burrows. Yula Nzale has been our sign language interpreter. Mumbwa and her team have been very busy on the digital desk, so do find the stories and any report you'd like to rewatch online. And it is time now for me to make way for Diaspora Connect, and that is hosted by Neville. And on the decks, Yula, Zinetwangwa 1 and 2s, is DJ Selena. Stay tuned.